I'm not a very smart man, but I don't think that's supposed to happen. Get in a car like this and smile, there's something wrong with you. What is up, all of my beautiful YouTube family? Welcome back to the Bad LSX Garage YouTube channel. In this week's video, we're going to fix what I should have left alone. If you've been keeping up with the build on the 2018 Silverado, you know that I recently put Dinovox headers and a full True Dual X pipe from Speed Engineering on this truck, and it sounds amazing. When we was actually installing the headers, one of the problems that not only this truck has, but most people who put aftermarket headers on their cars or trucks, was that the number one tube on the driver's side was actually hitting the intermediate shaft. Well, you can take and bend the number one tube in, which I did. I heated it up and took a big size socket and a hammer and caved the number one tube in pretty well, or so I thought. Once the truck has been drove, once everything has settled, well, it come to find out that the steering, or this intermediate shaft, was still rubbing the header. I found this out because of the vibrations that was coming through the steering wheel. Plus, the steering wheel had some resistance to it at some points. So obviously everything is settled, and well, where I had beat the tube still wasn't enough. So in my infinite wisdom, I thought, you know, I can take my grinder in here, grind some of this down, take some 600 grit sandpaper and clean things up and put a little paint on it and be good to go. Well, little did I know that these little fins that I was grinding on, there's no meat on the bones here. There's absolutely nothing here. And guys, I didn't take a whole lot off at all. I didn't have a chance to. So as I went one pass around, I went in the truck, started the truck and turned the wheel so I could finish getting the opposite sides. As soon as I did that, it immediately snapped, it immediately broke. Steering wheel went haywire. Obviously I knew what it was because it was the only thing that I was working on. Now I'm thankful that it actually happened here in the garage, because I'd actually found a Facebook Marketplace deal, and a couple hours I was supposed to pick it up. I could have probably had this welded back together. I won't trust it. So I've looked online trying to find just this piece. This piece isn't readily available. You actually have to buy an intermediate shaft, and sometimes it comes with this piece. So I've had to look several times over in order to find this. I actually found it on Amazon. This is going to give me a chance to right my wrong. It could be a whole lot worse. I could be having to take this whole header back off again, and I absolutely don't want to do all of that. I don't think that I can get a socket in here and a hammer. There's just not enough room to do any work here. I think what I'm going to have to do is come out here, take my wheel back off, my inner fender liner, and actually take my socket and my BFH and do everything from here, and hopefully massage everything the way it needs to be so we don't run into yeah, this problem again, because don't ever do that. That was stupid. Why did I even do that? Our steering wheel and our wheels are now simultaneously doing what they need to be doing, and that's steering this truck. However, I have another issue, and I knew that this was going to be an issue. I just had my fingers crossed that it wasn't going to be. So if you own one of these newer model trucks, you will know that in behind this airbag is what is called a clock spring. And this clock spring actually acts like a hose reel, if you will, but it's for the wires. Your wires for your airbag, your steering controls, your radio. And this clock spring, when you turn this steering wheel, it acts as a hose reel. It stretches those wires, it puts those wires back. Well, when that shaft broke, and when I was being stupid and showing you guys that, hey, the steering wheel's free, I'm pretty sure that I broke the clock spring. There are a couple of ways to check to see if the clock spring's bad. One of those ways is to take out the airbag and get in there with a multimeter and kind of see what's what. Another way is, while everything is together, see if your horn works, see if your dials like your cruise control works, or your features for your radio. Now none of that's working, so I'm automatically assuming that it is the clock spring, considering the situation at hand. As I said, I am taking steps to see if this is the clock spring, if it's bad or not. One of those steps is actually unhooking the negative terminal of the battery for around 30 minutes. We're going to try to reset everything. We're going to hook the battery back up, go through, start the truck, reset all the codes, and if the codes reappear for the clock spring, and they should if it's bad, and the airbag light will also be on, then we'll know that the clock spring is bad. And I do already have one ordered, but it's not going to be here for a week. So we've got to continue to move on regardless. And it's not going to hurt you to drive your truck with this airbag light on or the clock spring being bad. And the thing is, the light's going to be on. It's going to be worrisome because it is an airbag light, but this is not going to cause your airbag to blow prematurely. It's more than likely, if you get in an accident, not going to blow.
Tomorrow.
eBay coming in clutch. They got our clock spring to us 4 days early, so I'm super pleased with that. But now here comes the fun part. We got to get this clock spring inside of this steering wheel. The negative battery terminal once again needs to be unhooked. Now let's remove this trim piece that goes around the steering column. It just pops off, pop the top off, and kind of just stick it out of the way. The next part, we need to remove this airbag. So in order to remove the airbag, turn your wheel to where it's at this direction. Now it's going to be hard for me to get this GoPro in here so I can show you guys what to do next. However, what I'm going to try to do is use my cell phone, and I have a light back here that's hopefully not blinding you guys, but we're going to turn this cell phone upside down and we're going to go in behind here. So as you can see, there is a opening right here, and in this opening there's a little clip. You want to take a flat screwdriver and go in behind, and hopefully you guys can see doing this. We're going to take this, go in behind, and you could feel it. You could feel it initiate on that little piece. Now pull your screwdriver up towards the top and kind of remove your airbag. As you can see, it pulled out just a little bit. Now we need to turn the steering wheel and get to the other side and do the exact same procedure. Now turn your steering wheel back to the straight position. That way when you remove your steering wheel, you will know exactly where straight is at. You want to make sure that your steering wheel is locked. That way you can put it back on straight or semi as straight as you can, and just break the nut loose. Once the nut is off the steering wheel, just rock the steering wheel back and forth and pull until it just comes loose just like that. Take your wires that's on the back side and run them through the steering wheel. You also need to remove this bottom portion of the steering wheel cover. In order to do so, the little clip for your tip just pulls out, and this just pulls away. We have finally got to the clock spring. Not that hard of a job really, not yet anyways. So now we need to remove this clock spring, and in order to do so, as you can see, there's a little clip down inside of here. Now you can use a screwdriver, a couple of screwdrivers, and remove this clip, or if you have the proper tools, you can actually remove it with one of these. So let's get this clip out of here so we can remove this clock spring. Now that that clip is removed, you need to come down here and remove these zip ties that go all the way down to the steering column and come all the way down and around over here to your e-brake and connect right there to this yellow plug. This yellow plug is part of what connects to your clock spring. Now we're just going to remove this clock spring from the steering wheel. Just gently remove it off, and then at the very back, remove this plug. Now remove the whole clock spring out as one assembly, if you can. It may not be possible. There's all kinds of wiring that runs down the steering column, up across and over to your emergency brake. You may have to go in and actually cut these wires. I mean, obviously you're not going to reuse any of this. So if you want to cut it and leave it, that's up to you. Now let's install this new clock spring in reverse order of what we just uninstalled the old one. Something I should have emphasized before we started this whole installation process, you don't want to remove this because this is actually keeping everything located. So we don't go through the same situation that we just went through with it unwinding, and yeah, that'll be a mess. So you want to make sure that you have everything plugged up here. Everything is lined up. You can see that little clip right there. You want to make sure that it lines up on that clip, lines up on the shaft, and then you can get your actual clip over top and clipped into place, and then you can remove this. And you remove this by holding it and just pulling it out like that. All right, now that everything's back together, let's hook this negative terminal up, make sure nothing explodes like an airbag or something worse, and let's see what kind of codes we gotta fix. Could it be that easy? Well, it seems to be, but we're gonna have to wait until another day to actually check it out. It came a monsoon. My garage is half flooded, the road's flooded. This wasn't a video that I was planning on making, but you'll have that on those big jobs. When you take a stock truck or car and you take it beyond its stock parameters, like I've told you before, you're gonna run into situations like this. Headers ended up being a steering shaft or a intermediate shaft and a clock spring and a couple of more days. But it is what it is. At least we got those new parts in, we figured out our mistakes, and we roll on with them. But fam, that's all I've got for you for this week's video. I love each and every one of you. But as you can see, I've got a mess to clean up. So until next week, are you ready? Let's do this. Peace. I'm out.